President Prabowo Subianto will open the Indonesia-Brazil Business Forum 2024 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The event was attended by business entities from Brazil and Indonesia. As the organizer of this event, the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN, was successfully gathered a significant amount of investment for Indonesia's free meals program and energy transition. TVRI World's Valerina Daniel sat with the coordinating vice president of KADIN, Sinta Kamdani, during the G20 Summit 2024.
Hello, I'm Valerina Daniel, and today we are here with the coordinating vice chair of KADIN, or Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ibu Sinta Kamdani. We'll talk about the Indonesia-Brazil Business Forum, which took place one day before the opening of the G20 Summit 2024. Indonesia-Brazil Business Forum 2024 has been held successfully in Rio de Janeiro. What can you share with us for the event?
Well, first of all, it's nice to be here in Rio. I think at the sideline of the G20, I think the largest meetings of the leaders of the G20 countries. Yesterday, we were able to organize a business forum. So the business forum is actually for Indonesia and Brazilian businesses. So we also brought a number of delegations coming from Indonesia, and we have gathered around 40 Brazilian businesses from the top companies in Brazil, who come actually especially on a Sunday from Sao Paulo, because most of the businesses are not based here in Rio. So we had a very, very great discussion yesterday. We are honored also to have the presence of the President Prabowo. And as you know, this is his first trip overseas, so it's an exciting for many business people who's heard him for the first time. And I think yesterday he is able to address a number of issues. First on a topic of the food security, and then he talked about the energy transition. He talked about carbon. He talks also about how Indonesia involvement in the international organization, including he's announcing that Indonesia is interested in participating in BRICS, in which Brazil is part of it. So it was an exciting moment. We also had many questions, I think, from the business people, and how the plans for Prabowo governments, and how businesses from Brazil are also keen to participate, who look at opportunities in Indonesia. And not only that, Valeria, we are able to also sign a number of agreements.
Yes,
so this is really concrete.
Yes, that is also the thing that I want to talk about here. What is the concrete result of that business forum?
Yeah, so we have a number of agreements. First, there's agreement between 3 MOUs, RGEs, with also Brazilian companies. And we have also Embaria with Dirgantara Indonesia on aviation. And we also have, this is interesting, the Asia Beef and aircraft. And Asia Beef, as you know, is also coming and investing in Indonesia, especially addressing the issue of food security, because they're developing cow and for beef and dairy and dairy. And this is not just exporting, but also they're going to invest in the whole ecosystem. So actually, this is one of the interesting part. But Prabowo also mentioned about how he also wanted to learn from Brazil, because Brazil has also implemented the nutrition meal for school children. So that's something that I think he addressing the food security from the business point of view, on how the supply chain of the as Asia Beef, I think, is very interested in coming to Indonesia. So we have a value of worth more than $2.8 billion US. So at least there's something also concrete out of this forum. But I think the exciting part is, for the first time, we also really intensify our collaboration between Indonesia and Brazilian businesses. As you know, Brazil is quite far away, so geographically, it's not easy for us to really meet. And I think this is really a good momentum with the new government, for us to have the top business people of Brazil in the rooms.
Okay. Yes, food security is also one of the topics that is most talked about during the G20 Summit 2024. What do you think is going to be the results of this year's meeting?
Yeah, so maybe I can explain a little bit further on the process of B20 and G20. So as you know, Indonesia hosted a G20 2022. I was chairing the B20 at that time. And the B20 consists of all the businesses from the G20 countries. What we do is we formulate a policy recommendation to be submitted to the G20 leaders. And the same process is happening this year in Brazil. So we have completed our policies about 2 weeks ago. And it's comprised of 5 areas. And the food security actually encompasses in the first area, which is more how to businesses also are concerned about inclusive economy and how to combat poverty and hunger. So food security is really a main topic also in that respect. And we also have issue on the supply chain, how the global supply chain will need to be enhanced, to increase the resilience of the economy. So I think as a country of Indonesia, who's very much have food security on top of mind, similarly to Brazil. And this is why Brazil has put this as one of the key priority area, because we want to ensure that our people can be self-sufficient in terms of food. And as you know, both Brazil and Indonesia have similarity in terms of their potentials of the food productions. But we are still net imported for many of the commodities. So this is something I think that between developed and developing countries are also working on how developing countries like Brazil, like Indonesia, can really increase its resilience and have a food security program to protect its people. So I think energy transition was also a big topic during our presidency. So this is a continuing topic, I think, and in Baku for COP29, I think it was also a topic that is definitely forefront. Yes, Indonesia is very much on top of this topic, and as you know, President Prabowo also a concern of energy security. So it's interesting in how when we talk about energy security, it's affordability and also accessibility to its people. So we're not talking about just how to achieving the net zero before 2060 for Indonesia, but how it can be affordable and accessible. So this is why I think the government has very much in mind that the energy transition has to really protect its people. So we always call it the just transition, right? And I think, as you know, there are many aspects that it's still big challenges for Indonesia to go through this. So if we talk specifically for Indonesia, and maybe similar to many other developing countries, I think first we have to look at that. I think at the moment, while we want to accelerate the energy transition through development of the renewable energy, it's still a very big issue because countries like us are very much still dominated by coal. So we want to retire coal early, but it's not an easy task to do. We are still subsidized fossil fuels, so as far as tariff is concerned, it's still not as competitive. We also talk about the financing. Financing is not the access to finance, but also the affordability of the funding. And another thing, of course, is the technology. So there's many technology when we talk about energy transition that comes to the picture as well, and including hydrogen, which is much more expensive, including nuclear, So I think a government in all countries has to be aligned on 3 aspects. One is on the regulatory framework, because definitely energy transition needs the right policies in place. Second, on the financial part, like I mentioned, But the third is also the human capital aspect. It's very important because we talk about energy transition, we talk about new jobs, we talk about renewable, it needs new skills. So definitely these green jobs are very important, how we can upskill and reskill our people.
Yes, one other thing that is also talked about during the G20 Summit 2024 is energy transition. How can we make sure that the climate fund is implemented effectively?
Yeah, I think this is has always been a discussion since a while back, right? I think we talk about in COP there was many climate commitments, that has not been realized from developed countries to developing countries. So developing countries always say that, okay, you ask us to make this commitment, but please support us. And developed countries has made many commitments, but unfortunately the realization has not been as optimum as we want. So the same thing when we did the Just Energy Transition, JETP, I think it is a very, very good initiative. In 2022, we got $20 billion US dollar, but I think also the execution is not as what we are expected. So I think many of the climate commitments, I think we remain that way. We just have to ensure what is the right model to unlock this funding so we can really have projects funding available on the ground that can be implemented. I think the key word is implementation. Key word is how we can really secure those funding for the projects that we want.
What do you think is going to be the result of the G20 Summit 2024 that is going to influence Indonesia's economy in the future? Indonesia's economy.
Yeah, I think Maria, we are very confident and optimistic with the President Prabowo new government. We are hopeful. I know that Pak Prabowo is a leader, a global leader. He really would like to put Indonesia on the map. He wants to really attract more investors coming to Indonesia, and I think his presence in this arena is very important. Everybody is putting attention to him, and I think on many occasions he spoke very well on how to promote our countries, and also really bringing investors. I think the key is Indonesia wants to grow with 8%, as what the president said. Definitely we can't do it alone. We need investors coming in, right? In order for investors coming in, we need to ensure that the business climate is competitive, is conducive, is sustainable. So this is really the homework of our government. How we can really ensure that this climate is there to really lure the investors coming in. So all the eyes are now looking at Indonesia, at the new government. Is it really true that it will be combating the bureaucracy, corruptions, and so forth, as what committed by the president? So I think if we do that, then yeah, we should be able to attract much more investment, despite, of course, the geopolitical condition that is not favorable to many at this point. I think this is the right era, right new chapter for Indonesia. I think G20 is the one of the biggest forum that we can really show, in how Indonesia, the new Indonesia, with President Prabowo are wanting to really accelerate some of the programs that can also bring an interest of many investors coming in. So this is not just about policies, but it's more how the policy can really turn into actions and how Indonesia can utilize the momentum of this forum to really get and grab many of the foreign and investors to support come to Indonesia. They always say Indonesia is open for business now.
Thank you, Ibu Sinta, for sharing with us today. And that was our conversation with Ibu Sinta Kamdani, the Coordinating Vice Chair of KADIN, Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Well, that was definitely a great conversation coming from Rio. I learned a lot in terms of the economy and how the commerce is expanding in Indonesia and beyond, Ferdi.
Yes, exactly. Yes.